Hello everyone, Anita here and welcome to the week 4 of the 52 weeks illustration challenge. I almost forgot there for a second what week it was. It happens. First of all, let me tell you I am trying a new light setup in this video because I've been so fed up with the quality of my past videos. So please tell me how you like it. It's still not perfect. I have only 2 big lights right now. I'm waiting still for 2 more, so hopefully by the next video it will be even better. But so far I'm actually really happy. It's at least it's consistent. If it's a little bit dark, at least it's consistent. The only thing that bothers me is that sharp shadow that you're getting, under objects, because one of the lamps does not have an umbrella. Yeah, well, it was brighter this way, so. But it's fine. I'm actually, I'm pretty fine with this. So today we're painting to a theme swimming, and I've decided to make this little underwater scene just because I was feeling really like painting something underwater. I don't get to paint a lot of underwater pictures, and I'm not really good at painting them, as you will see in a bit. And I really didn't have a plan for how I wanted to color this picture. I had an idea for a sketch and it came out really nice. I was very, very happy with the composition. It was a little bit bottom heavy, I think. It felt really bottom heavy. Like there was so many things going on at the bottom of the picture, but in the end I kind of felt, it's okay, it's fine. I didn't mind it that much. I've decided to use the Strathmore mixed media paper again, because I liked it so much in the last week's picture, and that was a mistake. It still came out pretty good, but this paper is not made for watercolors. I was struggling really much with trying to just actually make the watercolors stay on the paper. It was just sliding away. It was staining the paper, but just sliding away. I had a feeling like it was just trying to run away from me. So I started here with a really, really light shade of blue, and thank you for like making me have this inspiration, because really, if I started with any darker shade, it would just go away. It would just slide away. I had that problem a bit later with some other darker shades. It was just constant struggle. On the other hand, I really like the result, so I have no idea what I'm going to do the next time, because I actually really like the result. I don't know. It's a it's not the kind of paper that I'm usually painting on. It's not a watercolor paper by any means. It's too smooth for it. It doesn't have any tooth, and I think for any other medium, it works perfectly fine for colored pencils, for soft pastels. Even though the doesn't have any tooth, but watercolors, not so much. So at some point I've just, I think it was actually around this time, I've just stopped caring. I figured that soft pastel would cover most of the mistakes anyway, so I just needed to put this very basic shade. I tried to do some, a little bit of like mixing. As you can see on the on my testing paper, I tried mixing purple, this magenta color, with the blue. But on the test it would look pretty nice, but on the actual paper, it's the same paper by the way, it would just push too much. It wouldn't mingle on the paper, it would just push each other away, so you had this really ugly line between the colors. And it wasn't because of something I've done, actually. It was just, it didn't matter if I added the same amount of water or a bit less to each paint. It just didn't want to mingle. But so I just stuck with flat colors. I've decided to wait a little bit until the first layer of magenta dried, and then add a little bit more and see how that goes. So as you can see, it's a very, very boring moment. I wanted to leave the white circles, the little fluffy bits. I don't even know what that is. I wanted it to be bubbles at first, I finally settled on some kind of underwater organism. It's open for interpretation. I don't know. I have no idea what it is. It's some you can see sometimes those algae or just floating in the water. Just let's imagine that's what it is. The biggest idea of this picture was behind the submarine anyway. Anything else was just a background, so it didn't matter that much to me personally, at least. So here I'm actually trying to go for some kind of gradient, and because I couldn't really mix the watercolor together in one layer like you would normally do, of course, so I've decided to do it a little bit, you know, the harder way, just layering it on top of the older layer, of the lighter layer. However, the problem was that once you wet the layer underneath, the pigment would really lift. The paper would be still stained, and it would lift more than what I'm used to with the same paint on the regular watercolor paper. So I had to kind of figure out. You don't see it here, but I've noticed it. I was trying not to press the paintbrush too much to the paper. I was just trying to move the paint around, trying to fill it in, and I was kind of like thinking how to make it transition from, like, I couldn't make a gradient because I would just make a big mess. So I decided to use those little bubbles, I suppose, to kind of give an idea of a gradient, like you would in this other. For example, in printing, that's how you do it, right? I think. In the end, this part didn't really matter. It sort of disappears under all the soft pastel that I'm adding in the end. But if I added soft pastel on top of white paper, you would be able to see it. Of course, the pastel I'm using is not that high quality. I imagine if you're using a higher quality soft pastel, then the pigment is more fine and, you know, it covers better. But the ones I have are really inexpensive and they're fine for what I'm doing. I really like to do a layer of watercolor first and then just enhance it with soft pastels. That's how I used to do it in the beginning when I just started painting. And I still love this technique, so I don't see a point of just painting actually with only soft pastels. Which I had an idea like that, but it's just not for me. I tried it once or twice. It's not for me. The feeling is different. I still like the layer of watercolor under my under painting. Yeah, that's actually a good word for it. It's kind of like an underpainting, although not really, because I'm still doing a lot of details here. Now here I was thinking about adding some color to the tentacles, I suppose. I would also like to point out that these are supposed to be jellyfish, but they look more like, you know, floating mushrooms. But that's okay, you know, that's fine with me. It's just a lot of underwater mushrooms. And I was trying to add a little bit of color. And I was thinking I would maybe make it a little bit shiny, from like there's a shining effect coming from under the cap, like as if they are shining inside and, you know, the light is spreading from underneath. In the end I didn't do it. I liked it. I felt it would take away from the submarine. Because, you know, the jellyfish are a background piece. They're supposed to be there for decoration. They're supposed to enhance the feeling of underwaterness. They're not the main subject of this drawing, so I didn't want to put too much attention to them. And here I'm adding a color to the rocks. I'm starting to care a little bit less, slowly less and less, about how even the layers are. And also, you know, these are rocks, it doesn't really matter if they're even or not. But I'm still trying to keep the paint away from the white spots, even though I give up at some point, I think. And of course I'm jumping a little bit from... It's very hard to actually keep painting in the frame. And I've decided to edit a little bit less, because usually I cut out a lot of... well, maybe not a lot, but I've changed the way I'm actually recording right now. I pay more attention to when I'm starting to paint and when I stop, instead of doing everything in one go, which then needs a lot of editing. And because of that, I'm often cutting out some pieces that I would like to include. Or I'm just not paying enough attention to how I transition from one piece. I'm just kind of painting from out of the frame. And it's not really that visible once I edit everything, but I know it's there and it bothers me. I would like to include everything, so I'm paying more attention to it now. As you can see, I missed I missed that one before, but it's much better. It's actually much better. I'm much more happy with how this video came out. I'm getting there. I've never made videos before I started this channel, so you know, there's a learning curve into into everything. As you can see, this time I don't really have that much to say about this picture, mostly because I was really frustrated while painting it. Nothing came out the way I wanted, and mostly because I didn't really know what I wanted. It's a very hard, very tough feeling when you want to paint something and you know this is supposed to be pretty, like you have in your head this amazing picture, but you don't know exactly what this picture is. You just have this like blurred, you know, canvas that shows something, and you know that it's awesome and you want it to be awesome, but you don't really know how to get there. It's very hard to explain. So I'm just kind of adding bits of color here and there and trying to figure out... I didn't even have a color scheme in my mind, except the fact that, you know, the submarine is supposed to be yellow, because submarines are supposed to be yellow. Everybody knows that. So here I'm adding a little bit of washed out green, and I'm using pretty much only 4 colors, and trying to mix it. I usually do that. I don't use more than 3 or 4 colors, and then I mix them. So here I have a blue, magenta, and yellow with a little bit of green that I also actually mix. Now, of course, I added different colors to like smaller details like the characters, but that's just I mean the whole picture, so that it's consistent. It has a consistent coloring. I don't usually use more than 3-4 colors. See, this is what I mean with this darker purple. The darker color, it just didn't want to stick to the paper. And that's just the paper. The paper is not meant for watercolor. So, and I'm trying to mix in some pink and like I would normally do, and normally it works perfectly. This time it just it just doesn't want to, and I'm hating it, so I just dabbed it away. I was like, okay, I'll wait for it to dry, and I will put in another layer. So here I bought a lot of these little palettes recently, because I've noticed that I've been using a lot of our own dishes for painting, and my boyfriend started to get a little bit upset about that. So and I use a lot. I don't really wash my palettes. I kind of save them for later, and so when I'm working on more than one painting at a time, I run out of space, because I have a palette for this painting with paint saved, and then I need some new palettes for the current painting. So I was really happy. I found these, they're really cheap. I really wanted those ceramic ones, but these are expensive. They look so cool and they feel so heavy and legit. But the plastic ones are also fine. They do their job, and that's important. Here I'm trying to figure out the shade of of yellow I want to use. I usually use yellow ochre. I hope that's the way you pronounce it. That's my favorite yellow, but I felt that yellow submarine should be a little more yellow. I kind of wanted it to look metallic, or not even that. I didn't want it to look new or plastic. I wanted it to have a little bit more of depth. So through the painting process, you will see me adding a lot of different colors to the submarine. And here I'm adding the little boy inside the submarine. And I wasn't really trying to paint it exactly to look... I had copper in mind, copper, just a copper submarine. Of course, this is not a copper color, but I don't know, I just didn't try to paint it exactly to look like metal, but I was choosing, for example, to leave a little bit white here and there to make it look smudged, to just, you know, the little tiny touches to give them an idea that it's used and maybe made out of metal, because of the plates that are in the actual picture on the submarine. You know, you can see that you get the idea that it's metal, and that's what illustration is, of course, all about. But I still felt that it needed a lot of those different shades. And here I'm actually trying to add layers of yellow here and there, because I felt that I haven't used yellow before in the picture. So I felt that it was a little bit too, the submarine stood out too much. And that's why I did the stars. These are actually starfish, but they were not supposed to be yellow, and not first, of course. But in the end, I was like, okay, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I'm actually trying to add it. Watercolor on this paper works much better if you add it in thinner layers. Then it kind of sticks to the paint underneath. If it's too much, it will still do crazy things, but if it's just a little bit and you try not to kind of disrupt the layer underneath, if you leave it be, then it actually works much better. That's why I start with those flat washes usually and just keep adding new layers on top of it a lot. I didn't want to add too much detail to the characters. They're so tiny that this is an A4 piece, so it's not very big. And the focal point was focal was the submarine. So the characters were just for an added story. And this picture was actually kind of inspired, I suppose, even though I didn't realize that it was inspired. It was inspired by an older piece I've made for the challenge in its first year, and it was for the underwater theme. Just in that piece there was a Volkswagen bus, that little sausage car underwater, and it had an adventure, but it was very similar composition. So when I was actually drawing this picture, I was like thinking, where I know this picture, where did I take this? Did I copy it from somewhere accidentally? It happens sometimes when you you saw something and you are drawing to a theme, and then this idea, this image you've seen a long time ago pops in your head and you're drawing it accidentally. But this is then I remembered that I actually drew a picture like that before. And that was a relief, because I was scared. I copied it from someone else. Adding soft pastel pretty much everywhere. I'm kind of enhancing every single element. It also adds to the underwater feel. It's a little bit smudged. I really liked it. So I'm adding a lot of the glow and on top of the submarine, and it becomes very dreamy. And because I have such a big set of soft pastels, I don't actually have to mix them too much. I usually can find a color match for the watercolors I'm using, which is a good thing. I really dislike combining soft pastels. It's too much work. It's not worth it. It can be done. It's just a matter of, you know, just like in watercolors, you scrape two colors next to each other and you mix them. But I prefer it much better if I already have colors. Whoa, that was like magic. All of a sudden colored pencils appear. And I'm using Copic marker. Yes, it makes sense. I didn't plan to use it at first. I actually enjoyed not using it last week. It was very refreshing. But this picture became so smudged and so blurred because of the soft pastels that I felt that it really needed that added dramatic touch of the Copic marker. So it's just the usual W3, the medium gray. And I'm just kind of adding little, just pretty much lines. I'm enhancing the lines again. I go over the lines at the end with a black fineliner because they got lost under the soft pastel. Not all of them, mostly just the shadow lines. But you don't see it in this video. I did it at the end when I actually realized that it was a little bit too smudged. And I tried to add a little bit of colored pencils, but I didn't use that much because it was not necessary and it didn't stick. There was already so many things going on top of the paper, and colored pencils need, you know, some tooth to hold on to. So it works really well when you're using watercolor paper, but this paper was too smooth, and with the soft pastel, perhaps if I used the fixative, of course, then it would you could still put another layer of colored pencil. But at this point, it didn't work, so I mostly used just the Copic marker. And then I actually took out some gouache because of all the soft pastel, and because I couldn't add any more watercolor, but there was still not enough detail that I wanted to add. I just took out some gouache, and if you're not familiar, gouache is just a type of watercolor which is opaque, so it's very pigmented, and you can basically paint on top of a different color and completely cover it. So I did that, as you can see, with the leaves. I left that out because it was really boring, and with the stars, and then I kept adding a little bit of this pale yellow, the same as the stars. The pale yellow color. I don't even know how it's called, but it's a really, really nice yellow. I mixed it also with a little bit of white, so it's even brighter. And I just added it everywhere for a little bit of an additional shine. And then I just went over in some places with just white white gel pen. And this gel pen, oh, it's so nice because it's new, it's very juicy, and it comes out really nicely. I just wish they came in a bit smaller size. This one is a little bit too big for the detail. And here, as you can see, I'm adding a little bit of a white texture to those circles because, as you know, if you didn't notice, they completely disappeared because I didn't know what to do with them. Because, you know, when you paint something and it doesn't have a purpose, you forget about it and you don't know what to do with it. So it was a bit tricky. But I added a little bit of texture, kind of made it feel like it was fuzzy, and it came out nicely. I'm outlining the mermaid with some white, just because I felt that she wasn't mystical enough. I wanted to have her shine, just kind of like, she would be more visible, of course, and she would be a little bit shiny, and I like that. And here I'm trying to add a little bit of window. And that's pretty much it. After that, I've just added... Oh yes, here I'm also adding just the idea that the little fan at the end is, you know, turning. I don't know if it came out properly, but I liked it in the end. I'm always happy when I like the picture in the end, especially when I hate it during the process. It's very nice feeling. Just really less touches, and here you can see the full painting. Of course, I boosted the colors a little bit more in Photoshop. It's a little bit darker, and the lines are much more pronounced, as you probably remember. I went over them. If you want to see this picture in more detail, you can see it over at my Facebook page, and also at the 52 Weeks Facebook group page. Please like the video if you liked it, leave a comment. I always love to read them, and I will see you next time. Bye!